welcome to another week of Cantina Chronicles. Settle up to the bar with us, and as we talk about the 5th episode of Ahsoka, Shadow Warrior. Adam, welcome back. Grant, good to see you, buddy.
How's it going, guys?
What do you guys think about on this monster episode? What do you think about all that?
Hold up. I was not here last week, so I have a comment about last week's episode before we jump into it.
Really good point. I'm so sorry, Adam.
No,
we should have done an Adam recap.
No. This will be real. This will be kind of short and actually may lead into our discussion. Thank you for representing me. The Zeb comment was exactly what I would have said. I literally
sounded like something you might say.
I literally said that to Carly when we were watching it because I was watching it. And I'm like, it's weird that Zeb's not there. I'm like, he'll be there. He'll come in. They'll get him in. So you guys had an exchange where Grant, you said something along the lines of like, this is about episode 4, saying this is the best episode of Star Wars television, and Ben jumped in and went, including Andor, and you kind of backed off. Well, Andor, I'm gonna actually double down. Episode 4 has been, including with this episode this week, the best episode of Star Wars television. Period. Episode 4 was the best episode of all Star Wars television. Now, Andor is better television if we're measuring it by television standards.
Fair.
But episode 4 so far is the perfect Star Wars episode. It had everything you want in Star Wars. Like, it literally had lightsaber battles, mentors. I mean, I think if we go to our pillars of Star Wars, I think that episode clicked off every single pillar of that we created in our pillars of Star Wars, or almost near that. Like, it was damn near perfect, to be honest.
So many great one-liners.
Yeah.
I thought Filoni's script was just super tight.
Yeah.
Like, amazed. Just
That's it.
Yeah.
I think episode 4 is going to be overshadowed by episode 5 for understandable reasons. And we'll talk about episode 5, but I don't want us to lose sight of episode 4. I think episode 4 so far, and probably, I mean, I'm just going to guess with the next 3 episodes left, is going to be the best episode of the season. I think that episode was amazing. Was just one of the best. Is the most Star Wars I ever felt in a series. Like, I was just blown away by episode 4. Anyway, all right, that's all.
two great duels, doing parallel action with fighting and just having such strong duels one after another. It was just really cool to watch.
And it didn't feel like it was trying to like ape Star Wars in some ways that I feel like we occasionally get. I mean, it's Filoni. He understands what Star Wars is, and he was able to put it on screen again.
Yeah.
I had a talk with someone about that recently and kind of defended the world between worlds, because I feel like really what that concept is sort of a new piece of lore for the story. And I think we love Star Wars so much, like especially A New Hope and the original trilogy, because the Force feels new. The Force feels fresh. It feels like a new mysterious part of the story that we don't have all the answers to, and we're exploring, whereas the world between worlds feels like a new sort of like environment, a new part of the lore that kind of makes everything feel fresh again, which I think is cool. And
you have to expand, you have to build.
I think Adam and I were talking about this before, where I'm sort of, I don't know, like usually I just let a new Star Wars wash over me and I like love it. You know, like that's sort of my superpower, is the suspension of disbelief. But this one, for some reason, I'm just sort of holding my breath around every episode, because I just sort of, I mean, we have so much Filoni work to sort of go by, and this is a new step for him. But I mean, it's amazing. I think you're right. I think I'm like witnessing like sort of like real George, like from the source tier Star Wars writing in real time. It's just weird that it's you know, it's papered over with the modern shooting techniques that so it looks like in the modern style of of Mandalorian, really, and using the volume, which I mean, I think I'd like to talk about at some point, because I feel like the original trilogy was darker. It was sort of like space is dark and you're just sort of lit by the cabin lights, but they do a lot more in the daylight now, like in real space. And so it's a little jarring, but even like, there's something about the like starship decks that it's like, it's a little too bright for me, which is, I'm taking this into a nitpicky thing, but like, other than that, it's like, it's the story is fantastic. It's like, it's cryptic without being confusing. It's, it has all these fantastic, like slow moments. It like all the like interstitial scenics and like starship landings are just tone perfect for like original trilogy Star Wars, and even prequel trilogy Star Wars.
Yeah.
It's just I just don't think my brain can reconcile that I'm actually getting it, because I never thought I'd get that tone again.
No,
you know?
it's very true, and it's one of those things where to be honest, and this may take us down another corridor, when they announced that Filoni was getting his own movie, I was a little shocked by that, right? In terms of like, where he started out and other stuff. I am not at all. It's one of those things where they clearly saw what he was doing on Ahsoka and was just like, yep. And I can totally see that. And I'm going to admit, I think it's important in this world that we all admit our biases. I have a anti-Filoni bias that I've been working against, and that's mostly because of all of the toxic fandom stuff sometimes surrounding him, that he does nothing, I think, to fuel.
Does he have toxic fans around him? I thought I was the toxic fan, because I feel the same way.
No, it's about the because every single clickbait article is they're gonna fire Kathleen Kennedy and put Dave Filoni in charge of everything.
Please.
It's this.
I mean,
it's
someday maybe, I don't know, but like not soon.
I don't think so. I don't think he wants it. He doesn't want that job. He wants to create. He doesn't want to be the person.
Right.
So
they have a perfect team. I mean,
100%.
If you look at some of the documentary that they made about the show.
Oh, I didn't watch that. Is it?
Yeah, that little
wonderful.
7-minute thing. It's worth watching. It is. It was
great
very
collaboration.
Yeah, it's really a nice Master and Apprentice with him and George, and some other Masters and Apprentices. It's really well done. That little
was
thing.
Kathleen in it too?
Yeah,
I think
yes.
She's had a little. Yeah,
she was one of the talking heads.
Okay, but she wasn't one of the Masters or Apprentices.
No. Which I don't think she would put herself. I think she would have said no to that.
That.
That's not how she sees herself.
I mean, Kathleen Kennedy gave us Andor, so I praise.
She's given us everything.
She's given us everything. Like we know that we are all good here.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the toxic fan base was going real hard with that stuff with Filoni as the savior, and this is like, and it just is like. Yeah, and he's just exactly. He's a white dude, and so anyway, but I've let that go even before I think Ahsoka started. I let that go, just like, well, if he's good, he's good, and I'm not going to let the other people. I'm not going to like dislike him because other people I don't like him. Yeah, if you can parse that out, because he again, I just gotta start this. He's never done anything to bring that onto himself. Like he's always talked highly of Kathleen Kennedy. He's always talked about highly of the process of everything
George,
else.
Very respectful of all the people he gets to work with. And it's definitely, his style is like, it does feel a little lifted from the animation of Rebels. And I guess Clone Wars too. But the VFX are exquisite now. Like they're really like, I don't know if they, again, like it just seems like they're always elevating the like production value on VFX and in animation and everything else. But the VFX, like the Ghost looks amazing, the Purgles look amazing, the scenics, it's really easy except for the cabins of the starships. Which I'm gonna stop harping on right now.
Too well lit.
There's like too much light. Let's get dark.
Yeah, Ben, I'm glad you said that, because it's that something has not been working for me in the cabins, and I could not put my finger on it. And then it's too clean, it's too well lit. I think you're right.
Even the Republic starship, you can see their outfits, and it's like they look corny. It's like they always looked corny. They also should, like, I feel like, submerge those outfits in like tea water and make them look a little bit draggled, like they've been sleeping in them. Because that's like part of it. But like they got it dead on in Rogue One. And that's like, I don't know, listen.
But now they're well funded. I mean, being
that's what I was gonna say. That's the argument, right? Is that was the rebellion. This is the New Republic. Right. They all are crisp, starched, and cleaned, and
in their corny 70s outfits.
Does it look weird?
It does.
I agree.
The Ish Teeb looked amazing though on that starship.
Mm-hmm.
Just standing there looking alien-like. But why don't we delve right into?
Yes, actually, let's actually talk about episode
5. The brass tacks. It's good to get caught up, Adam. You were sorely missed last week, but just that much more glad to have you here. Meow.
Yeah, glad to be.
I mean, if I was gonna pick the top bullet point that was on the internet, it was about the interaction between Ahsoka and Anakin. Live or die, right? That was sort of, he's like, you can choose to live or you can choose to die. Like, it was a very cryptic sequence. I mean, that was the real backbone of this episode, and the rest of it was them trying to find the body and figure out what happened to Sabine. There's good stuff that happened there too. We'll get to it, but let's get right down to the brass tacks here. I think because people were a little confused by that montage, right? So we have Ahsoka. She apparently goes to the world between worlds, goes on like a little bit of Ghost of Christmas Past, Ghost of Christmas a little less past, Ghost of Christmas a little less past than that, and then you win, and then we clearly, as we've been talking about over and over again, and a lot of people have been talking about, we get Ahsoka the White, which is a comment on Gandalf the White, which happens in Lord of the Rings, the same apotheosis transformation that Gandalf goes through, Ahsoka goes through. So so I guess the question is like, what happened? What was the big deal? What was the lesson that Ahsoka learned? That she definitely transformed. By the end of the episode, if you could pick one thing, she just smiles more. Suddenly she's smiling and she's happy and she's like content. So she goes through a transformation there. She does go through an apotheosis. What caused it based on her interaction with Anakin?
Oh, I mean, again, pretty subjective, lots going on, but I always boil this down to, I think it's a very similar lesson to what Luke got on Dagobah when Yoda's kind of riding his back, telling him about anger and how it's quick to join you in a fight.
Yeah. And
live or die. And sometimes Anakin in this vision is saying they have no choice but to fight. We have to fight. And it's so interesting because this is a side of Ahsoka I don't think we really got in Rebels or Clone Wars, which is I guess a side of the story or the theme of her character that we haven't gotten, which is like she is forged by war. This character is forged by war. I almost think if you made A New Hope today, there would be a lot more talk of war and how Vader is forged by war and how these characters were the Jedi, wartime Jedi, and what that means, and sort of we're finally getting that. I teared up when we went to that first battle of Ryloth, and it was like that just beautiful Japanese woodwinds and like the chimes and Anakin in the fog. I was like, this is powerful stuff, and this is the kind of the angle on Anakin I've never seen before, and an angle on Ahsoka I've never seen before. And again, I think it was a lot. It was really just about life is a struggle, and what do you do during that struggle, and the conflict within. It's a lot like Luke and Vader on Endor, and I sense the conflict within you, and I know the Emperor hasn't driven it from you yet, and sort of Anakin saying, I'm more than just Darth Vader.
You're so close to you're right there. Stuff. So that's what I got out of it. It's to me, there's a quote that it is not in there that was in here, which is the quote, the famous quote, let go of your hate.
Yes.
Yeah. It's let go of your past.
Yeah.
That I feel like is what was argued, because there's a moment where she is talking to him when he turns to Vader, where she just goes, where he does this thing is like, you're carrying me in you, and you're carrying all of the teachers before me within me, right? Like that's the whole thing that she talks about. He talks about, and then she goes, and that's when she goes, even like you turned into Darth Vader, all of that, and he goes, but I am. And she goes, I was forged by war. And he goes, you're so much more than that. And then that's when she says, you were this whole horrible thing. He's like, but I was more than that too.
Yeah.
Right. Yes. Like, I think it's this important thing of like, you are not defined by your worst actions. And I think the reason why she's Gandalf the White at the end of this is because she's let go of her baggage of the guilt she felt about leaving the Jedi Order, the guilt she feels about not stopping Anakin, like all that stuff's removed from her. And now she's a Jedi. There's a moment like this. All I thought about this whole thing was when Kanan is knighted in Rebels during a vision.
Right. Yep.
This was her knighting.
Yeah,
she's walked out of this as a full Jedi Knight, even though it wasn't put out on Front Street. That's what happened to me in this episode. She is Ahsoka the Jedi Knight.
That's a beautiful read. Both of you guys, that's fantastic. And I think that echoes exactly what I was thinking. I looked at a lot of theories on, not a lot, a few. I dabbled and like listened to what people were talking about it because I wasn't really sure how to process it myself. But that's sort of where I arrived. And actually now listening to you, I think that this might be answering the question of what is a Jedi and the paradox of having a lightsaber. It's like you have to fight. That's part of it. You're always going to have to fight to live if you want to be a Jedi. And yes, she was born so what are you going to say, Grant?
No, I would push back on that just a little bit, given that this also kind of reminded me of when Vader is pushing Luke and mentioning Leia in the throne room fight in Return of the Jedi, and pushing Luke to then become the aggressor, and in that kind of making him fight in that moment. And I think there's just one more layer after that in which
I'm getting there. I'm getting there. So I think there's two main lessons here. And I should have scaffolded better that way. But I think there's two things, because there's really only two flashbacks and then the Vader fight, right, that happens here. So the first thing is her trauma and her growing up, and he's like, this is how I trained you. You know, it's like, this is your training. This, you know, she's like, this isn't what I trained for, but he's like, this is your training. He's like, I'm teaching you to survive. And she's like, well, what if I don't want to? He's like, then you'll die. Like, this is him being like, listen, I'm keeping you alive, and I'm teaching you how to be the best warrior you can be. And this is, and he explains actually literally, and I didn't know if it was like some sort of parable, but he echoes what we've learned recently, that the Jedi are malleable, right? They serve whatever purpose. And he's like, you know, I'm not what Obi-Wan taught me to be. He's like, when we grew up in peacetime, and he taught me in peacetime, but then we had to become this thing. And this is what it is. And so I'm just going to keep you alive. And that's my main focus. And then we get her in the Siege of Mandalore, right? And it's something else. And I think this is the second main point, is that she's afraid that she's of what he became. And it's the Vader part. And he's like, is that what you're worried about? And, you know, and it's sort of like, he's like, you're afraid of being Vader. He's like, then you've learned nothing, and we need to start over again. Because I think it's twofold. To become a Jedi Knight, and this is the paradox. It's like, yes, you need to defend yourself. You always will need to be able to fight if you want to live. But, you know, through this like fight, and like, you need to, you know, release your fear of becoming Vader. Just release your fear, period. But mostly that's Ahsoka's main fear. And then, you know, when he's fighting and she's got him on the ropes, she's like, no, like I choose to live. And that's the other side, what Grant, you were just talking about, which is like, you know, I am everyone that came before me. This is the true spirit of the Jedi. It's okay that I have attachments. It's okay that I have emotions. It's okay that I'm a real person. And like that is what's core to being a Jedi. It mirrors what we saw Obi-Wan Kenobi do in the Obi-Wan Kenobi live action series. It's a pretty long list of people that have let Vader live at this point, right?
So I'm going to say something that might draw us into a bigger conversation, but like, I feel like the internet does what the internet does, which is sometimes overcomplicate things that are not actually that complicated when we look at this.
Yeah.
She passed her cave test. That's all we got here. This is her cave test. She passed it. Luke failed it, which makes sense because she has a lot more training and she's further along when she is than where Luke was when he got it. This is where we're going to draw into the thing. The Anakin, and I'm putting that in strong quotation marks because, by the way, guys, that was not Anakin Skywalker, but we can talk about that in a moment.
Oh God.
That was
into his detached position.
No, that was the Force. That was the just like it wasn't Vader in the
it was the Force
in the tree. It was the Force. It wasn't Vader in the tree. It was the Force. This is not Anakin Skywalker. This is the Force giving her death.
No, that's actually my read as well. I have the exact same read.
This was Anakin Skywalker. It makes no sense.
This was Ahsoka's baggage. This was her projections. Exactly. This is the Yoda 100%. Line. You only, you know, what you take in there is only what you take with you. You know what I mean? That's all 100%. That was.
Yeah.
Sorry,
I disagree. I'm standing with. I mean, you guys blew my mind right there. But I'm going to stick with the fact that it actually was them. I actually floated a theory on Reddit just to see what would happen with it. That they weren't actually in the War Between Worlds, and that this was just like a neutral manifestation by the Chosen One. When Obi-Wan shows up and he's a blue ghost, that's pretty cool, and Yoda and all that. But when the Chosen One shows up for an enemy, like, he can manipulate time and space, and he takes you into his own world. And like the world, because it's like there was no gates, but it's like something that's in her mind, and so she's familiar with it. The physics didn't work the same way. That was a hot take, and people are kind of like, well, then why did Jason Syndulla, Jarrus, why could he sense them and hear them, and do all that? So it's like they were probably in a parallel universe that could be the world between worlds. That's a hot take, guys. I don't know. I don't think I buy into it because it kind of discredits.
I feel like
I don't think it's that hot.
I think it's like approaching the dark side cave cold. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I would say that.
Then why was she so happy? I mean, I don't know.
I will say at the very end of the episode,
why was she so happy to be deceived? You know, wouldn't like his head fall off or something to show that like it wasn't really him, or, you know? You think this was really the daughter's like manifestation? This was the Convor, or was something like that?
No, it's just Ahsoka's mind. It's her own psychological baggage that she's bringing. she basically has a near-death experience.
But why are you going to discredit
Spirit
Anakin
quest.
Skywalker's like vision appearance and just be like, oh,
because
no,
she's traumatized by being raised during war and her master being having turned to the dark side in that fight, and sort of she also thinks she might. And Baylan Skoll in the last episode is like, you and your master became more dangerous than we could possibly imagine, and like you're a product of destruction and chaos or war or whatever it says. And I'm just like, and then so I think she is contemplating that. And she's also, what's interesting about that last episode was episode 4 was she draws the saber first, fighting Baylan Skoll, which I thought was kind of an interesting characterization of her.
Jedi at
all. It wasn't Jedi at all. And she pushed Shin Hati against the rock. Like she really needed to you had
really
was becoming this product of destruction. You know what I mean?
Yeah, she used the dark side, and she saw. And again, the last thing she saw was what her student did. She knows her student, even though she doesn't know. She knows her student. She knows or knew that she was losing Sabine, right? So her whole Force vision or her whole Force trial that she put herself up against was about masters and apprentices and becoming and accidentally passing along bad behavior to your student, right? So like she had to let go of that baggage too, and also teaching herself this, or the Force teaching it, or the Force being a conduit to her learning it. I will say that here's where I could meet you somewhat in the middle, Ben, if we want to get real pedantic about this for a second.
Oh, I do.
I do not believe that's a Force ghost at all, because I don't think, and here's me putting rules on things that don't have rules, that doesn't feel like a Force ghost to me for so many reasons. It wasn't presented like a Force ghost. It's done things that we've never seen Force ghosts do before. But perhaps the Force was allowing a manifestation of Anakin. Someone like Anakin, something like Anakin. Do you know what I'm saying? Like being able to use, because it's all part of the Force suit.
I would use that same argument to say that's why it is a Force ghost. I mean, because like, well, so are you saying that Luke never saw Yoda or Obi-Wan? Like those were just
those are actual Force. No, those are actual Force
ghosts. Because the blue lines,
because that glowed blue and had a couple conversations.
I just think
but didn't turn evil and like have Sith eyes and have a red lightsaber and get into an actual physical fight. Nah.
I mean,
nah. I mean, the only time we've seen a physical fight between anything and whatever is a ghost in a cave.
Still, so I mean, Chosen One, right? And so it's a little different with Anakin. He's very unique, and World Between Worlds is also like that's fresh and new and all that stuff too. I just think like from a storytelling standpoint, it's a lot more fun if it's Anakin Skywalker than if it's like a it was all a dream.
Here's what I'll say. From a storytelling standpoint, Dave Filoni did this 100% right, because the three of us are sitting here yelling at each other about what actually happened, but it doesn't matter, because whether you're right or I'm right or Grant's right, the end result still works and makes sense, which is great storytelling, right? You don't have to explain everything because all of our explanations work.
Right. I just love Hayden. I mean, it was a fabulous person. Like,
yes.
And I want that.
It was Hayden.
I mean,
this
is
an incredible performance.
This was the Force Ghost.
It's always a price to pay.
Right.
Whatever.
This was the Force Ghost Anakin I've been waiting for. Like, and it did all the things you wanted, but better than I could ever imagined. Right.
Yeah.
Like
I think it's my favorite Hayden performance as Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah.
Any Star Wars, anything.
100%.
Yep. It's also my favorite Anakin Skywalker thing.
I love that they made him
all of
Vader.
Clone Wars, I love Matt Lantern's work in all of Clone Wars, but I mean, this was just my favorite kind of trail. I like the echoes to Mustafar when he first draws the saber. It is like exactly Revenge of the Sith, and he's like, around.
Yeah, I mean, and there was so much like a great callback. She's like, "I will not fight you." He's like, "I heard you. I have heard that before," and that was just like a great. It was a great like Return of the Jedi callback. Yeah, he's fabulous. He clearly has been practicing with a lightsaber because his skills are sick. It was like amazing choreographed fight scenes. But I love
so meta that they like kept Hayden in the mix and kept giving him, saber training and near the volume. And we're like, you're gonna jump in this show, and then you're gonna be in this show. And like, it's lots of saber fighting, so you're gonna be the best. But makes sense because the character's the best.
Yeah, totally, literally the best.
And whether or not this was Force Ghost Anakin, I could tell you, as certain AMs that will see Zeb by the end of this season. We haven't seen the last of Force Ghost Hayden Christensen Anakin.
I hope not.
You know what I mean? Like I can't imagine that they're not going to pull that.
Yeah, we'll get there.
And seeing him, it made me think, we could see Luke Skywalker at some point in this show.
Yeah.
Because I was like, okay,
Yes.
like you almost want to see the Skywalker that has found the light
Yeah.
after seeing this whole
Yeah. Well, so
Yeah.
weirdly, yeah, I 100% agree.
the light at the end of the tunnel for Ahsoka in a lot of ways. I don't know. That's
yeah.
just what I feel.
Yeah.
Like basically the embodiment of that redemption for Anakin in his offspring. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. As much as I really was looking forward to this, we talked about it before. It's like we really need an Ahsoka Luke conversation.
Yes.
That's a little more than just like, hey, about the child, which makes sense. They have the conversation about Grogu, but they also need to have a conversation if they haven't already, and if they have, we need to see it. The other thing, kind of about bringing Luke into the series, is that we have a parallel story going on here, which is something I don't want to jump away too far too quick, but I just want to say, like, if you told me that we were going to have Ahsoka talking to Anakin Skywalker in the World Between Worlds before this season went, I would have gone, yeah, okay. I could see that happening. I'd be really surprised if I could see that happening. If you told me we were going to get this much Jason Syndulla, I'd be like, you are crazy. You're out of my mind. We're not getting this much Jason Syndulla.
There was a great line
much.
to set it up where Jason sort of peeks his head out of the ghost and he's like, "Mom, is it okay if I come out now?" And because that's how I felt about his character all season. It's sort of like, can we just talk to Jason Syndulla now? Like, can we address the elephant in the room, the Jedi in the room? And
the Jedi, the young Jedi in the room who could go to.
I love his dynamic in this thing where he's just like clearly overprotective mother. I think best you could go is be like, we're going to let him develop on his own pace, but we're definitely not going to force him into, Jedi trials. But she seems receptive to his force abilities in this episode and is like nurturing to a certain extent.
That's her character journey is coming to terms with having a force sensitive child. That's her journey, and I think her journey ends with her dropping him off
somewhere
at Luke's temple.
I wonder though, because I don't know. I mean, maybe he was there and we just haven't seen it in the comics as far as him getting slaughtered. But maybe he did. Or maybe he has a different mentor. Maybe
he's got like 18 years before that happens.
I think it's less. We're in year 9. I think it's like 6.
No, because that happens like pretty. Like how old? Like I don't even think how old is Ben's not even born yet, is he?
It's got to be like 10 years from now, right?
Ben is 4 years old, I think, right now.
Okay, so he was what, like 18
like
when that? I think he was 18 when that whole
16.
slaughter happened. 16, so 12 years. So this kid is how old?
8.
So
I'm
that
guessing
puts him at 20.
because 8 is like the entrance. I think they're gonna retcon the like when the Force hits you is like to the same time when their like core fan base starts following Star Wars, which is 8 years old.
Mm-hmm. They're gonna be like, Harry Potter rules.
Yeah.
But that makes him like 20 when the whole slaughter happens, so he could be out.
Yes, he could be in the galaxy
out there,
or
maybe he could be a full-fledged Jedi Knight.
There is a fun tease of asking Hu Yang to train him, where he's like,
"Yes,
will you train me?" And then
it
was fun.
No.
I was like, I would love if Jason Syndulla ends up with like Hu Yang at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Like that would be cool.
Yeah,
it would be really cool, and it'd be like a safe enough situation. But I mean, Ahsoka is like, oh, that's interesting. It's like kind of cute, like Ahsoka's like, oh, like he's like hit like forced puberty. That's adorable. Like sort of reaction to it. And she's like, that's very interesting, and like this is when
she busts out that like level 99 psychometry at the end.
Yeah
right.
You're like, whoa,
they're really going home with the psychometry in like the movies, the games. Now it's like,
so it was the
full on.
her holding the half on that timepiece, obviously, and figuring it all out. That was all that force power was essentially birthed in Fallen Order. I don't think we've seen it before then. Maybe another video game, but
books obviously. And then...
No, but Fallen Order was post episode 7, right? Because we see it first in episode 7 when she touches the lightsaber.
Right, it's a little more abstract edition of it, but yes, like literally just being like with purpose. I'm gonna hold this thing and figure it out. One last thing on Anakin, because I didn't get a chance to say it, was just
no, please,
was just the Vader part. I love that.
So cool.
Like where he turned to Vader but didn't like get the armor, and I don't know. That was like that's what I mean. Like that was my dream. You know, we had talked about getting a little dark side Anakin, a little light side Anakin, and like how that would be cool if they played with that, and they did, to great effect, I thought. And it was just, I love the way they did it, and how they, you know, essentially it was still the same lightsaber, but the lightsaber color changed. And obviously he got the eyes and was there, and then he just like receded back into himself, like his normal Anakin self, and was like, he did it. We did it, Joe.
It shows so much restraint to not put him in the armor and have him fight her in the armor, right? Like, and I was almost like, because they did a couple flashes with him, right, in the armor, like a couple like distance flashes, and I was just like, boy, here we go. And but I love that we got, you know, and that's like full power Darth Vader. If you think about
the
it.
Darth Vader we didn't really get. But that makes sense, like, according to the comics, that, like, that's really how Vader sees himself. Like, when he meditates, he is like a full-bodied human being, not a machine. And so it would make sense if, you know, that's real Force Ghost Anakin, that's how he would project himself.
Ben is really going on a limb defending this theory.
I respect your decision to have less fun. That's you're welcome to do that.
It's not any less fun. It's just it's a lot of fun. I read the scene as a spirit quest, and I read Anakin as the, like, basically the embodiment or the perfect encapsulation of her trauma or her traumatized perspective of his transformation. Like, how disturbing that transformation
but like, how
is.
tone poemy is it that it's actually him who takes her across that final threshold? I also think
he's in brown robes and he's actually fully good as a ghost, so he wouldn't do this at all. This is the Force. In my opinion.
I'm not trying to say everyone's against Ben.
This is his outfit. This is
Filoni wanted to do a cool thing where, like,
you mean like when he was an apprentice, like a Padawan?
No, when he was actually
canonically, he's in the brown robes, and he's just
at the end of
Return of the Jedi. He wears the long cloak.
Yeah, the only time we've seen him as a Force ghost. Literally the only time
he's chill.
The only other time, we saw him as a Force ghost, right?
No, the only time.
Right, that's what I said. The only other time.
Yeah, the only time got it. So no, but if not to say that Ben's wrong, but the episode ended and
he keeps saying, "I am more than that."
That wasn't Anakin.
I'm more than that. It's basically like commenting on the whole Luke thing of, like, Luke is like, you're more than just the dark side. You know, the Emperor hasn't driven it fully from you. Like, but it's sort of like it's after that. It's the full transformation, and I feel like that is. You get that at the very end when she throws the saber away. You get that this is you're able to see that last form of Anakin. That's like, now you've done the right thing. You are passive. You are complete. You know, your skills are complete.
Yeah.
What if this was also so? Let me now.
If he said that at the end, I would have just literally turned off the television and walked away.
I know. Let me also argue, like, be devil's advocate, and Ben, like, so let's say this was Anakin, right? Actual Anakin spirit. What if this, like, a ghost was the last lingering thing he had to do? Like, if we're really going by ghost rules, is to finish his Padawan's training. Right, like, this is him finishing his Padawan's training.
We do have precedent in the books that, like, I think it was Qui-Gon in the speaking to Obi-Wan in A Certain Point of View, A New Hope, I think, where there's like a degree of permanence that they get, and actually, I'm pretty sure Yoda, like, was so permanent that he lost the blue light in The Last Jedi.
He's got the blue light.
All right, but in the books, that, like, you can achieve full permanence. Like, sort of the appearance of it. So I mean, it might be there, it might not. I mean, hey, listen, I don't have a long history of being right about this stuff. Oh wait, I do. And so we'll see.
Yeah, it'd be funny if he does appear at the end, and he's like, "By the way, I was the real during that.
That was really me,
and I'm glad you believed in me.
That was really me. All the fanboys. Again, the thing I wanna stress is, like, what I love about this is, like, let's say Filoni, says, because that's the only person that could do this, right? Is Filoni comes on the internet and goes, yes, that was actually Luke Skywalker. It was Force Ghost Luke,
Anakin,
or Force Ghost Anakin. I would be like, okay, fine. Yeah, does that make sense? Like, it doesn't.
I know, and I'd feel bad about
like,
making fun of you guys, but, like, really, I should really let you guys know.
No, you should totally hold us to task if that's what happens. But I also feel like, knowing him, he's just going to be like, well, it's really up to your interpretation.
Yeah, right. We'll see.
Yeah.
Anyways, it was a blast to see him. It's just like enchanting to see him.
Yeah.
There. But yeah, Jason was a huge thing as well. I was like, I think there's a lot of fun stuff to come there, but I just think it's fascinating how like protected he is, and it's like clearly he's got so much potential. I mean, I'm cheering for maybe, it's like at the end of this, Ahsoka's like, you know what, maybe you're not a Jedi and I was wrong for going about it this way. You need to be the person you need to be, or your training's complete, something. And then she takes on Jason as her Padawan.
That's what was so interesting to me is I was dead wrong about the Anakin scene and what would happen. I've been wrong about almost all my predictions. I feel like I don't even.
But you've got great predictions. I love
Star
all
Wars
your
is about
predictions
at this point. But I thought we were going to talk about the Jedi in that vision. I thought he was maybe going to curve her perception of the Jedi in that sequence. I really thought he was going to talk about the corruption in the Senate and in the Jedi and in Darth Sidious and how he had to live in fear and how he had to fight because there was someone manipulating him to live in fear and to fear for the ones he loves and all this kind of stuff. I really thought he was going to come clean with Ahsoka and sort of say that he was the problem instead of the Jedi, and that Palpatine was a major problem, and that usually the Jedi can sense the darkness, but this was, they hadn't touched it in many years, or they hadn't experienced it in many years, so they just couldn't sense that ultimate evil. And so, I thought that was going to go on with that, but totally wrong. Happy to be wrong, and I actually love that this was almost like a continuation of that. Really, when I think about Star Wars now, and I do any sort of like predicting of what might happen, I think about the echoes of what we know those characters to do in previous stories, and training is a major part of the Anakin and Ahsoka dynamic. It's like the main part of their story in a lot of ways. And I think when the last season of Clone Wars came out, there was the whole training piece. Tales of the Jedi has that whole training episode. It's like I should have just been like, what has been the main through line with these characters? Training. I should put that together, but I was in a whole nother realm of thought about this moment.
Adam, if you don't mind if I jump in, because
go for it.
Grant, I think they did give you what you wanted, but in a very Anakin way. Like, Anakin isn't articulate. You'd never get him to sort of be this sort of introspective, mindful person. That's not who he is. He's like, I'm going to show you through fighting like what it is. And this is how I started the episode, and because of what you said, Grant, was like it's both things. It's the duality of being a Jedi. It's like, yes, you need to learn how to fight, and we need to be adaptable, and part of that is being a warrior, and so I did that for you. But the part, but obviously it was wrong. She's like, there's so much death. He's like, I feel it too. Like he doesn't apologize for it. He's like, yeah, no, it's terrible. And like, I also feel that. But then he's like, but we are more than that. Like, we've always been more than that. And it's incredible when to me, real Anakin, thinking about his past, he doesn't even really think about the Vader part, because it was like, that was a necessary part of the Force and what he had to do. And when it came down to it, he remembered that he's a Jedi, and he was a Jedi at the end. And, and it was just like, oh yeah, that whole, that rough patch I went through as Darth Vader.
That genocidal rough patch.
But I thought there was more of a defense of sort of wartime Jedi versus Jedi during peace. I think he even mentions Obi-Wan was a Jedi during peace. And he almost says you have to, live or die. You have to fight. If you don't fight, you'll die. All this kind of stuff. To me, it was more of a. To me, it was Ahsoka's projection of Anakin, and so Anakin wasn't there to offer any new revelations. So when I was making my predictions, I thought, could this possibly be Anakin? Are we going to get new information from the character, in the afterlife that, is he going to give that crucial new information to Ahsoka to change her mind about the Jedi? But if in my interpretation of it, it was basically Ahsoka dealing with her demons, and that was like all that was in a lot of ways. And so I just don't think any new information was provided.
I think
because it wasn't Anakin. In my opinion.
Also, and I promise I'll let you speak eventually. I I think that there was another like sort of ancillary mission of this episode, which is to sort of get you up to speed on what happened in Rebels too, and sort of set the table for like their dynamic and what happened in Clone Wars for people that are just watching the live action series. Yeah. So they were doing a lot of work.
Beautifully done too. Like, so cool to see that her master was Darth Vader, and to see that like, you know, they were, she basically came into her own during wartime and became a warrior, and, you know, under this shadow warrior, this person who's slowly turning to the dark side.
Yeah.
And I love that, you know, obviously Star Wars is all about people kind of fluctuating on between dark and light, and other people vying to change people's alignments. Like Vader in, you know, Empire Strikes Back talks about Luke being powerful and wanting to turn him to the dark side through action, through threatening him, through attacking him, through causing struggle and conflict within, so then he turns. And so like this is a very real thing in Star Wars, is people are swaying back and forth between these things.
All
of it. And that definitely was, I thought that was the fear of the vision almost. I thought that's what the vision was about in a lot of ways, was like in all of this fighting, Ahsoka's stayed strong and stayed in the light, but we see her slipping and throwing Shin Hati into a rock, and then you know, igniting her saber first when fighting Balin. Like Ahsoka is becoming more of the aggressor. She is slipping into the dark here. I think that's what Filoni's trying to show us.
Yeah.
Which kind of caught me off guard as a kind of like loyal Clone Wars Rebels fan who has watched all the episodes. Like, this is a side of Ahsoka I haven't seen before. She's usually an extremely measured warrior who is always very much light side. And so it's interesting that he's kind of painting her dark side in the beginning here, and then just to flip it immediately and do this whole light side ramp up, which is confusing to me. I was like, it's an interesting structure, but it's almost like comes out of nowhere for me.
But ultimately, she made the same, you know, she had the same evolution that Obi-Wan Kenobi did, even though Obi never really slipped to the dark side, but he was still like, no, I'm a Jedi. This is the right thing to do, is like, I just need to immobilize you and leave. And then Luke Skywalker obviously is like, refuse the dark side. And like, no, I'm a Jedi. Like, those are the two guys that get what the real core of being a Jedi is. So it's like, we didn't get more of it, you know, as much as I would have liked and you would have liked, you know, as far as like explaining that, but I'll take it.
Obi's whole thing is, I will do what I must. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, that's his whole thing. Like, he'll draw second, but he'll draw last. You know what I mean? He'll end
but I think that's it. I think that's going to be Ahsoka as well. Like, I don't think this is I don't think this is going to get as clear as a clear of a pacifist message as we did at the end of Rise of Skywalker, of all things, right? Which is just not a single like lightsaber blow against the Emperor, right? Like, but she's gonna draw that lightsaber again, those lightsabers again. She's gonna take down Balin's skull. It's like it's gonna happen, but it's gonna be in defense of something, right? Because like that's the thing that's always important, is like, you know, these are weapons of defense. We use these for defense, and that doesn't mean necessarily defense of yourself. It could be defense of the galaxy, defense of a planet, defense of the Force, defense of a child. Like, it could be anything, right? So like, you know, and the whole live or die thing, again, to me was like, Ahsoka's not been like, I don't think it means necessarily like, okay, let me back up for a second, because the whole thing is about fighting, right? Fighting is struggling is fighting. Fighting doesn't also necessarily mean physically taking a lightsaber and killing someone.
Right.
You can fight to live by just mentally fighting, right? Struggling, trying to survive. The live or die thing to me was more like, you have not been living, Ahsoka. Like, you have been just in the muck and mire, depressed, doing this. Like, the first time we see her in the show, she's alone.
Yeah.
Still living in your ship. I see.
Yeah, living in a ship. Yeah, like, she is not living, right? And I think that's more of the message, is like, you need these attachments. Like, I think that's literally what is part of what Anakin is saying, is like, when he said I'm more than that. And I think what more of that is the Anakin we got in episode 2, when he was rolling around in the hay with Padme. Like, these, and this is post, if this is Anakin, or what the Force is speaking through Anakin, this is post Return of the Jedi. Attachment saved him. Yeah. Right? His attachment, his son's attachment to him is what saved him. So I think that's what we're getting, is a message of, you need to live, Ahsoka, or else you're just gonna die. Like, sad and alone.
Yeah.
I think that's what we're getting more than anything. It's less about this.
And ultimately, she
Yeah.
ended up. I mean, so we follow Star Wars very closely, right? And we all we got who Ahsoka is based off of watching Clone Wars and watching Rebels, but mostly Clone Wars. Like, we knew she had this Qui-Gon Jinn trajectory of just sort of like, no, she follows the will of the Force. That's the way it goes. But it makes sense that in her own show, like, that she would go through some trials. And it makes sense that she would be like, well, I'm so worried about becoming like my master that I'm just going to close myself off to all attachments. And like secretly, even though she left the Jedi, she's adhering to their bad tenets more than she ever did. And repeating all the mistakes that she was trying to avoid. So, love what you guys are saying. I think that makes so much sense. She needs to, just be a human being and just, follow the will of the Force and love and do the things she wants to do. And
I love the Ahsoka we get at the end of this episode.
Me too.
It felt like Ahsoka. Like, it felt like the first time we've actually seen Ahsoka, right? This, like, it's better than going nowhere. Is like is such a great line. You just want something completely out of left field or different for a second?
Sure.
Yeah. Sure.
We get a Leia mentioned.
Oh yeah, Senator Organa.
Senator Organa. I was just like, I perked up like, ooh, like, because we talked about that. It's like we you don't need to see them necessarily, but to at least mention them and bring them in, it makes it feel like it's part of the world.
Yeah, exactly. That was great.
Was Senator Organa buying her time, or
it said Senator Organa says she can only give us cover for so long.
Oh yeah, which is so cool. Awesome that Leia's behind the scenes.
Of course, she's like, yo, whatever you need.
Strings. Yeah, it's great.
There's some great lines. Again, this is another really great script from Filoni. I think he's turning in incredible scripts for the show, and even Hera has some awesome lines where she's like, "I don't know how you keep score, but like I don't think we're winning." Like I forget there's so many good lines, and then I mean, we go full Purgle in this episode. Like I was blown away, honestly. I was like, we're doing it.
Yeah. They had
and they look so cool live action in a way that I was so worried about it. I was so worried when I thought they were going to be pearls. Like, it looks so dumb. It really doesn't. It looks amazing.
It looks amazing. They look fantastic. Yeah. There was a great cut where she's like, I think I have an idea, and she's Ahsoka's on the ground. I think maybe in her starship or in front of it, and she's looking up, and they see the Purgle sort of where she's like trying to figure out how to follow Sabine, and she looks up and she sees the Purgles, and then there's a cut to Mon Mothma talking to Hera in a thing, and Hera and Mon Mothma's and Hera's first line is, "You can't be serious." And it's like sort of like answers the last scene we saw, but then but she's talking about how
have thrawn in custody,
whatever's
happening,
right? Yeah, she's like, oh yeah, do you have Morgan Elsbeth in custody? What have you done? And so like Hera's got a tribunal ahead of her, which is interesting,
and she needs Ahsoka's testimony. And I'm like,
okay.
I'm like, I don't need to see that scene. I'm good.
Yeah.
Like, let's just go to that. Yeah. And like, what's so exciting about this show is we get to talk about the prospect of going to a new galaxy. We've been talking about this for years. We've been like, we want to see a Star Wars show that gets to spread its wings in a new environment, a new world, and we're getting an all new galaxy here. And so this might be exactly that, a fun new sandbox to bring all of our Star Wars toys to and just go full on, all new Star Wars.
Yeah. Unless there's no such thing as the Force in this galaxy.
Right. Which is what we're thinking, right? We have a big theory that
and I have another piece
or something.
Another piece of evidence sort of fell in front of me today on my second rewatch here, or my first rewatch. Because why wouldn't Ezra have thought of just hitching a ride with the Purgles back,
like jumping right on him?
Well, I mean, if he's being held captive by thrawn,
right, and he's plugged into a machine or something.
Adam's long game is correct.
Yeah,
here.
I mean, I guess, but like, if he has the Force, like, how much can Thrawn really do to him? If he has the Force, can he communicate with the Purgles? But if he doesn't, he can't communicate with the Purgles, and he's really just stranded.
Yeah, no, I love this idea of there's no Force in this galaxy. Is there? This could be the introduction of, and my brain fog is popping up. No. Maybe, but I hope not. No, Heir of the Empire, the little things that block.
Ysalamiri,
right?
I mean,
Islamari,
those
so if we
were
get
in galaxy creatures, though. I mean, you guys have said
they
this,
were.
but
Oh yeah, there's I think it's
But-
like Dryden's
but that's old
fossil.
canon.
but I mean,
So
like
if you
they
wanna,
lived
like-
in the galaxy with the Force. So,
Oh yeah,
yes,
but
but
not canonically
But again-
yet, right? Not yet.
oh
No,
right,
not
old canon. So
canonically
if you
yet,
wanted to bring
so
them in, this might
this would
be
be a
where you
good
bring
way
in
to
this
do it.
This is a
weird
good-
extra galactic thing that can block the Force, because that seems like it always felt weird to me that in this planet, in this galaxy, you could just go to some random planet and there's something that's just like
Right.
makes you god tier level
Yeah.
against the Jedi, as opposed to you have to go to another galaxy, you have to ride space whales to go to another galaxy to get these things.
Right.
Like it seems a
Yeah, that
little
makes
more.
it a little bit more
Yeah.
complicated and
Yeah.
I guess less feasible for a lot of bad
Yeah.
guys to just go utilize immediately.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
makes
so what are
sense.
they going to have to commit? Is Salamari genocide in order to get off? Like that seems sad.
No, just get out of the new galaxy, and destroy all just destroy the ship, and
Yeah.
you're good.
The other-
Thrawn's dead.
Yeah. The other thing that
yeah.
I was like seemed a little short sighted was that like Ahsoka's like, we're just gonna go and figure it out. It'll be great. And she has like a quarter of a tank in her like ship. Oh, actually, oh no, she was kind of
No,
fueled
that's
up.
Carson Teva pressing his fuel reserves.
Yeah, right. But also, like
Yeah.
the Ghost, like they were all had. I'm like, there's no gas stations in the next galaxy, so
Yeah, they'll figure it out.
They'll figure
That's
it
the
out.
logic I was not
Yeah.
thinking about at the end of that. I was
I was
just
like,
like,
well, how
the
will they
whales
fe-
are going to get them
Yeah.
most of the way.
I know.
You
Only I
Yeah.
would be like, well, where are they going to get the fuel for their ship?
Yeah. Where's the
To make
coaxium?
hyperfuel. I'm sure Thrawn's got an operation.
Yeah.
He's like the Henry Plainview of Merc here. He's like, you build an oil farm.
Good plain view reference. I'm glad you wrote that in.
Yeah.
This is Ezra. It's my son.
Now I gotta watch that movie.
Sorry.
Yeah.
No, that's like now it's just like anytime that's invoked, I'm like, now I got 3 hours ahead of me.
All right. So you mentioned Carson Teva.
Oh man.
How do you feel about Carson Teva? I mean, like we're getting a lot of Carson Teva airtime, and like his.
Are you kidding me? The comedy
Is-
points for
yes!
Carson Teva are like
Yeah.
10 out of 10.
I know.
Yes.
I know. So it's like, would there be like? I feel like his like differentiator is that he's brutally honest. He's just like he just tells it like it is. He's like I need to stall, so I'm just going to tell the truth.
He's kind of an obstructionist though at times, or I'm just like where he Hera's like, well, I don't care if people know about me out here. That's maybe a problem I could welcome. And he's like, well, not if we don't have any answers. I'm like, just get with the program.
Yeah,
just listen to Hera. Just
Like why are you here?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, and Hu Yang is like, well, you see, his father, was a Jedi, and he's like, yeah, okay, whatever, like
whatever. I do love that moment. That moment's great.
Yeah.
The New Republic pilots all have like the affinity for Jedi. Like I've always, it's always kind of been the underlining thing. Of Star Wars, and it's like, I just love it.
Yeah.
So this feels to me, Teva, it feels like a character that is, we want a through line through the Mandoverse, and you're going to dip into your well of characters. And if you need an X-Wing pilot, this is one that we can shorthand bring in, and he will do whatever you need him to do as a character. And he feels so underbaked at times to me. I'm sorry. This does not feel like the same person who did all of this stuff in the Mandoverse and like broke all of these rules, did all of these things to help the Mando. And now I was suddenly like shy about all this. It just
Really?
felt
Okay.
like, yes.
To
it
me,
felt
he's like the Wedge,
completely
though. He's
felt like a completely different
Ace.
character. No, Wedge would never have said any of those things. Wedge would have been there.
Yeah.
No, that's
the
true.
whole
Would've been like,
thing,
let's
never
go.
would have said,
Yeah.
let's do it. Yeah.
Wedge would have
And that
led
was
the
what
flight.
Teva felt a little bit like at the end of the last couple of seasons of Mando, right? But I don't know, maybe he's like, because remember the whole thing was like, something's happening out here, no one's paying attention,
Yeah.
we have to do this.
Right.
Well, now they're doing it.
Yeah.
Now they're figuring out what's going on out here, and he's suddenly like shy.
Well, he was there, right? I mean, he was part of the group that
Yeah.
that just like committed whatever the thing is in military when you go against
Yeah.
orders. But he was there. He's just trying to be practical about.
I'm
some
sorry, he
stuff.
went Rogue, as in Rogue Squadron, even though this isn't Rogue Squadron, because it should be
he
Rogue
went
Squadron.
Phoenix. But yes. Oh yeah, he did go rogue. I know. All right, so this brings me to another point that's totally off tangent, but there's more rumblings on the internet where people are talking about like, how do we feel about recasting legacy characters with new actors? And I feel like we're getting closer to doing it. Like obviously we did it with Alden Ehrenreich and Han Solo, and like, the next Luke Skywalker I think will not be a sort of face grafted character. I think we might get like a real actor.
It'll be what they did in the Book of Boba Fett.
It'll be a phase.
I'm wondering. I mean, there's people saying because Mark Hamill himself was like, "Why not just use that actor? He looks like me." Like, and he's like, "There's no need for me to do it." He was one of the advocates for like just like use a new actor. But
I think the new process is that there's an actor and Mark who work together and they basically map.
I mean,
and do the VO and all that. But he's
100% agree with what he's saying, and I think he fully believes that. It just depends on what contract he signed. That's the only thing that matters. If he signed a contract where they can use his likeness, they are going to use his likeness forever and ever and ever. After we are in the grave, they're still going to be using Mark Hamill's Luke
There's
Skywalker
so much fan appeal for Luke Skywalker. It's like ridiculous. Like,
I mean,
it's just like everyone agrees like Luke stuff's awesome, and it's
the thing for me though is like Luke stuff's awesome because of Mark Hamill. Like he is Luke Skywalker, like literally in our galaxy and theirs, and I want him there. But I mean, this was leading me to just be like, why not just recast Wedge Antilles? Like
the Wedge, totally. Okay. Minor characters, 100%. Like you don't need to use. I almost had his name. I almost pulled his name. There's actually been.
Actor?
There's also been.
Well, Wolf Yularen is a prime example.
There's been 3 actors who have played Wedge, by the way. There are multiple Wedges and multiple people who have voiced over Wedge. So like, there's not
It's not sacred.
Whatever his name is not sacred.
He's
no, please
cast Ewan McGregor's
Wedge.
uncle.
Yeah, that's right. Who played one of them. Which I keep almost saying the name and it keeps falling out of my brain, which is driving me nuts. But like, no, Wedge is one of my favorite characters, not because of anything that the actor did, because the amount of screen time you get with Wedge is like 7 minutes of Wedge.
Maybe.
Like you're right. I'm being very
probably
generous.
like 30 seconds. I mean, of actual
probably like
on screen.
Yeah. Because you get him a little bit in the first one, you get him a little bit in Hoth in the second one, you get him a little bit in the third one, flying down the tree. You get
and the
a
ninth
lot of
one.
Like, that as a Wedge lover,
never forget.
When that popped in, I'm like, who's that?
Yeah,
like I didn't even recognize him.
Put him in a cockpit.
Like a knee-jerk action cast. Because
like you would put Wedge Antilles even as an octogenarian or whatever he is, like in an X-wing cockpit. That's what. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, but he's a fan favorite because of everything they did with the EU and what they did with his character in Rogue Squadron. And like, I love him so much. That's one of my favorite characters. Yeah. Just recast him. Give him an actor who can actually act, who's young, and recast him and can do it. And we'll buy it as Wedge.
Right.
Just make him a little, not super cut. Like he's got a little bit of extra pounds on him. That's all I'm asking for my Wedge.
Okay.
I love these casting notes. Can we get that in the cast?
Pratt. Not Chris Pratt, but like body type Chris Pratt in Parks and Rec before Guardians of the Galaxy. That's the body type I'm looking for.
All right.
Not to like talk about people's bodies, but as a portly fellow, I want someone who's we don't need a full Porkins
here. Okay.
As a full Porkins, we don't need a full Porkins, but like Porkins light. Yeah. Oh, Des Lawson.
There you go.
Thank you.
Sorry, I was going through the holodecks there in my head.
Yeah.
Nice. I mean, do you think there is a galaxy? Do you think Hera is going to get kicked out of the New Republic?
I don't have time for that story, so I hope not. I'm just like, can we not go back and have trouble?
I mean, it
really
sounds super possible, right? Because like she's already done all the things she needs to do in Alphabet Squadron and in the Battle of Jakku and all of like, and Empire Strikes Back. Like she was in all of that. And then, so doesn't it make sense she'd be rogue and then she'd be one of the random disparate rebels that gets pulled in by Lando in Rise of Skywalker. And then they can do all that. Like then she can just be Hera again. And I know what you're saying, Grant, but like you do have time for it. Like Filoni has time for it.
Do I? All right.
Yeah. Filoni has time for it, and like they have.
I just
a
don't
lot
want to
more.
see her. I just think she rules, and I don't feel like the bureaucracy of the New Republic needs to step in her way at all. Like
that's what I mean. Like if she's like free of the New Republic, she can go on all these great stories.
Yeah.
So
all great adventures.
Keep in mind that, and I think you're right, Ben and Grant. I think you're right too. This is going to happen, just not in the show, because like if we've learned anything from the Mandoverse, is every show has at least one backdoor pilot built into it, and this is the backdoor pilot for Rangers. What was going to be Rangers of the New Republic is my guess is he's hard in the work going. hey, Patty Jenkins'
Squadron.
Rogue Squadron movie is probably not going to happen. Can you please just give us the license for Rogue Squadron so we can just make a Rogue Squadron show starring
our podcast.
starring herasyndulla
Yeah.
and all these other characters? Like, please, can you just give us that? Look, we've proven we can do the space battle stuff. Look at our shows.
She would make the
Give it
most
to
sense
us.
as the main character of a Rogue
Yeah.
Squadron film, right? Like
She gets busted in rank.
right. They're
She goes
literally
out,
a
yeah.
Rogue Squadron, and they do whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, my other
Oh,
question.
wow, you guys just blew my mind because that's perfect.
Yeah,
Like-
that's what you do, and I think Filoni wants that show, and I think wants to have that character.
But is she in the
something.
Ghost or is she in like an X-wing? Because I always thought Rogue Squadron had to be a show just strictly about X-wing fighter pilots.
I mean, it was, but again, that's old canon, right? So you could have her
Right.
leading a squadron of X-wings
Yeah,
in
in
the
the
in
Ghost.
that, or throw
What
her
about
in an
Jason
X-wing.
becoming an X-wing pilot? Becoming more of a pilot than a Jedi.
He's going to be
following
Ahsoka's
others'
Padawan,
footsteps.
so he's going to be busy.
Does he have
Yep.
to be a Padawan? Because I feel like maybe the whole point of all of this is that you don't have to be a Jedi.
Good point.
You don't have to be a warrior monk.
You got to defend yourself if you want to
Yeah.
live.
I mean, we heard that from a projection of
From Hayden himself, yeah.
Anakin Skywalker. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I'm excited to see what happens with Hera and Jason specifically because I love Jason and Chopper, and I love like just all those characters. So
Yeah.
My only demand is that if we get a Rogue Squadron, we have to have the character Hohash Equus in it.
okay,
All right.
the horse guy.
Deal.
The horse guy. That's all. That's the only thing I demand.
Yeah. I better get a Bothan soon. I'm like freaking out. I'm just,
I know. We got to get you a Bothan,
So
Grant.
I know.
Yeah, but-
Yeah, it's wild.
It's
It's
yeah.
such a cool like culture, like the Spynet culture, like so cool.
Noted.
Huge fan. Anyways, any theories? Should we go to the theory zone?
I don't know,
Any
man.
predictions after this?
That were my theories. It was sort of like, is Carson Teva a big enough character to carry a Rangers of the New Republic series? I mean, what's going on with Jason Syndulla, and then in Hera, like where does Hera go? I mean, those are the three big ones that I've got.
Yeah. Yeah, I think in terms of like theories, in terms of what's next,
you
I
mean-
think we're leaving.
Sorry.
Yeah, but in terms of those are, I think we're leaving this galaxy behind for the next probably 3 episodes. I think we're not going to be coming back to see what happened to Hera and Jason. At least maybe not until the very end of the end of the season. I think we are going to be fully in this new galaxy. I'm guessing we're going to see Thrawn next episode, maybe at the very tail end. I think we're finally going to get some Thrawn. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised we talked about a full Thrawn episode. I wouldn't be surprised if that's episode 7.
So it'll just be called Thrawn to Thrawn.
Yeah.
Let me see that Thrawn. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man. And I have to go.
That Thrawn.
Goodness.
Sorry.
What have we done to ourselves?
I've
Join
brought
the
us
dark
down a
side.
level. Yeah.
In our struggle.
Yeah. Oh boy.
I think that's probably the way it's going to go. And it's nice that we'll have 3 juicy episodes for it as well.
I know. That's all I care about. Yeah. These episodes have made me feel a way that I haven't felt in a long time, which is like they end on Tuesday night, and I am immediately sad that I have to wait a full week for another episode of Ahsoka. And I've been loving Star Wars shows, but I haven't really felt that in terms of just like, but no,
Yeah.
but like,
Yeah.
I'm like,
They're
and as
massive cliffhangers too. It doesn't help the cause.
and I've been not look at the massive cliffhangers. It feels like just one long movie, and I haven't. It just feels like such a thing to say, but I haven't been really looking at the time of each show before it starts, which I have to start doing because what happens is once it's moved past the half an hour mark, I'm just like, is this the ending scene? Is this the ending scene?
Well, it's like,
is this the ending scene?
Where do
Is
we
this
up,
where it's gonna end?
What's going to be the ending of the next episode if like the episode before this Ahsoka dies and then in this episode we go to a new galaxy? Like
Thrawn
the
reveal.
endings are just so strong.
Yeah.
Just
It's going to be the Thrawn reveal at the end, I think. But
Yeah.
I've been wrong about everything.
It
so
wouldn't
what do I know?
surprise me because I feel like I think it's wise to use an episode to convey the amount of time it gets to the next galaxy. So it wouldn't surprise me if it's a very Sabine, Morgan, Elsbeth, that
good
squad
call.
heavy episode, and maybe they do stumble upon Ezra and Thrawn. And then, the other one, I had a wild thought that was like, what if, like, because Ahsoka doesn't know where she's going. And I mean, it's entirely possible she ends up someplace weird. And like, honestly, I'm here for that show. Like just her with, I guess it's Huyang, just traveling in the mouth of Purgles around the like universe. That would be super fun, but I don't think we're gonna get that. Wouldn't make much sense to do that
now with 3 episodes left.
Yeah.
It's
to just like button hook us and be like, oh no, because we know we thrawn eventually. So I think they've got to get there.
Yeah, I think so too. It's so weird because this episode felt like the mid-season finale.
Yeah,
very much so. And then I'm like, wait, no, it's actually the
yeah
episode after what would have been the mid-season finale. Now we only have 3 left.
Yeah. I mean, but it would make sense for them to go someplace weird for one episode, right? And they're just like, oh no.
Yeah.
But like, and get into some weird event, like offshoot adventure, and then have to get back in a Purgle's mouth or something and figure it out.
We've gotten that in most of the episodes, right? Most of the series with the Star Wars series, we get the one, which is now like Premiere Television does this. There's always the one episode a season that's like slightly off the main path, right? And we've gotten that with like every Star Wars show. I mean, Filoni might not like that and may just say, no, we're telling the whole thing. But I wouldn't be surprised, which is why I think we might get that Thrawn-centric.
Yeah. I mean,
just no one else.
Like I said, on my Rebels rewatch, there was no fat on it at all. It was just like, bang, even the ones that seemed like the chopper episode that seemed like it was going to be that episode, it ended up being like central to them finding their base for the rest of the season, and it was amazing.
It's wild. That rewatch, I was trying to put together a rewatch for Carly to be like, here, watch these 10 episodes, and I'm like, I can't do it because like. You would just be confused, like, why are they suddenly here? I'm like, oh, well, in this episode that had like him finding his leg, we found this droid. Like, it's just why everything served. Every episode moved the larger plot forward in some way, even if it was just minimal. It's wild what he did in that show. Yeah.
Right on, man.
Oh, sorry, the lightsaber battle just started on my rewatch, so I have to leave you guys for a couple minutes.
Okay, bye. That's
okay. No.
I do think Ahsoka might. Yeah, I do think she'll probably fight Balin again. Skull. She mentions his name in the vision. I have to think that it might end similarly to this vision, basically, how she might just start dodging these heavy attacks instead of trying to block them and push them away. It's like when she just weaves out of the way of Anakin's lightsaber. I was like, this could be foreshadowing too. Yeah. How she gets to Balin. But does she kill him? Probably not. She probably doesn't kill him. Yeah,
he's a Jedi, and she's like, no,
I think it's a very much like a Batman Begins ending where she doesn't kill him, but she lets him die.
Yeah, I was thinking the same exact thing. I was like, she doesn't have to save him.
I don't have to save you. Yeah,
like something is gonna happen where she's like, I don't have to.
It's very Revenge of the Sith ending as well, right? Like Obi-Wan's like, well, I didn't kill you, but I don't have to save you either.
I mean. Or she redeems him. I mean, we could always go this further along the path that, like, maybe there's redemption for him, right? Like, who knows? Or what's her name?
Sure.
Because Shin Hati,
it's so fascinating because you feel like Balin and Shin are very redeemable at times.
Yeah.
100%.
At times. There's other times where they just outright slaughter people, and you're like, okay, maybe they're just fully Darksiders, but Balin clearly has a code of honor. He's clearly like a chivalric knight, like a knight errant character. And then Shin Hati she seems to question this in working with the witch, with the witch of Dathomir, the Night Sister, and Elsbeth. She's kind of like, oh, this is witchcraft. And it's viewed as she's either fears it or she views it
looks
with
down
fear
on it,
and looks. Yeah, it's not Jedi. It's not.
It's tainted.
Tainted.
I mean, that's what I like about this is like I don't want to open up a whole can of worms, but like part of the thing with Kylo Ren at times is I'm like, you're just a Sith. Just call yourself a Sith. Like you're
my
acting
problem
a
with
Sith.
The sequels. Anyways,
but like let's leave that alone for a second, just because we're running
so
into an hour and a half.
The last movie's like Sith everything. It's so upsetting.
If you're gonna, but then call yourself a Sith. And like, can we just like? I thought for sure he was gonna have a Sith name, but anyway,
I didn't.
But I think
I will never understand the fan community of Star Wars either. By the way, and just like the sort of allergy to the word and the allergy to what has come before, when everything ends up echoing and rhyming.
But here's the thing.
It's just like, come on.
If you're not going to do Sith, fine, but you need to distinguish then. And I think the show's doing a great job of like these dark Jedis don't feel like Sith to me. They feel like something else.
Right.
It feels like Dark Jedi,
which,
like exactly what you said.
Right, exactly. Which I like that. Like, great, that's great. We have a new thing. It doesn't bother me. It's not you just being like, we can't call him Sith because there's only two, and we don't want to mess with this. It doesn't feel apologetic or whatever. It feels like he's trying to do something different with these characters.
I do. We do talk about Ahsoka sort of being like Gandalf the White after this episode, but the way that their costume design, like the Shin Hati and Baylan Skull, like their costume design is so almost like the orcs or something, like from Middle Earth, almost like dark wizards from Middle Earth or something. Like it just feels like dark side in a lot of ways to me, just their attire.
Yeah.
And that's been driving me kind of like into theory mode where I'm just like, are they part of like some remnant, plans of Palpatine? Are they part of something Palpatine? Like, maybe, to me, it's just, I wouldn't be surprised.
Why not just claim the darkest Sith part? Then, why aren't they just Darth Baylan and Darth Hati, or Darth Wolf and Darth Wolf too?
Because maybe they're just dark side users, right? So in the old EU, one of the last series was the reemergence of the Sith, who have been like stranded on this planet for thousands of years, which is just weird storytelling. But they somehow finally got off because of, anyway, it's kind of dumb. But let's a good stories where you just have like the reemergence of the Sith. But you could have something like this of like there's dark side users who have been around, who have just been like hiding out because the Sith have ruled the galaxy, and they don't buy in the Sith. They're not seeking absolute power, or they're just trying to live by their code.
Maybe they are just Jedi who have fallen,
right?
And Palpatine has seduced Baylan with power, because Baylan seems to be after power, and so I'm just like, I wonder if someone has seduced him to seek out this power. It seems like something Palpatine would do. When he's talking to Sabine, it sounds like Sidious,
very Sidious.
He even has a do it.
He has a do it.
Yes.
Yeah, he has everything in there. And your friends, we reunited with your friends, uses a lot of the same buzzwords that Palpatine uses to manipulate people.
Yeah, and we know the contingency plan is Dave Filoni's and the Mandoverse is willing to, poke around in the contingency plan stuff. That's a lot of what's going on here. So like it's a possibility, right, that there's something going on here that ties in.
What if it's to bring back someone? You know what I mean? Like like this is another thing.
Darth Maul
like, you know
again.
What I mean? Like how have Jedi been manipulated in the past? They do form attachments, and Palpatine threatens that attachment, or offers an ability to save someone or bring someone back. The cloning process that's been happening in the background of all these shows could be another part of that coin to flip for Baylan. Maybe he's trying to get, maybe Shin's his daughter and he's trying to get the mother back or something. There's so much you could do that's really cool and interesting that ties him to the supreme evil in the galaxy, Palpatine.
Yeah.
Again, happy if he's a sellsword mercenary who's trying to reestablish the Empire, which is again, I just can't really connect the dots here. It's very confusing
but it's
to me.
Such a rich character that whatever they do, I'm here for it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like
I'm excited.
But I
trust Filoni. He's been masterful so far. I'm sure this is going to be a really fun character.
I don't know how to say this without it coming out kind of dark, but like oftentimes when I watch someone's like a posthumous
performance,
yes,
I think of, I can't get out of my head of like that person is no longer with us. That's super depressing. This role is so good.
It's so good.
I keep forgetting that he's no longer with us.
It's like
which
the
is
Heath
like
Ledger thing. It's like such a
character
that you're just
that's
like,
a really good point. I stopped thinking about Heath Ledger like 5 minutes into that. Like,
tragic. We lost Rey, but boy, did he leave a mark with this piece. Like, this is indelibly great what he's done here, and it's possibly one of the coolest saber fights I've ever seen. The dialogue is amazing. Even the psychometry scene in this episode when she's just recalling everything Baylan's saying to Sabine, it's just haunting and mesmerizing and super powerful. And he's so cool. He's a character who's as intimidating as Darth Vader, as knightly as Obi-Wan Kenobi, and and sort of just a kind of new flavor altogether. And so it's fun.
it's interesting you say that because originally Zahn, Timothy Zahn, he wanted to use a clone of Obi-Wan Kenobi as for Jorah Sabath, and that was like, he wanted to be that character, and they're like, nah, you can't do that.
Thank God.
But it makes sense.
That's like Peter David tried to use Peter Parker in Spider-Man 2099. It's the bad guy. Marvel said no.
I'll take your word for it. I'm sure literally dozens of people know what you're saying. Well,
Spider-Man can't be a bad guy, so it's just fast.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. And so he couldn't. But I mean, it's funny that you say that because there are definitely Obi-Wan Kenobi vibes coming off Bale and Skull.
Yes, totally. Yeah.
Really, and that makes me love him even more. I mean,
like the whole brainwashed Mount Tantiss clone isn't really. It's not really a narrative. I'm getting
it's not
behind
interesting
anymore. I just don't feel like
it's been done. Yeah.
And if it's being done, it's being done so well that it's being hidden and kind of woven in such a wonderful way. But
it's not part of his character, right? It'll be a fun reveal, like as opposed to in the book, we don't know he's a clone.
We kind of do. Like they say,
when do we know he's a clone?
Very
we know
early.
He's a clone early.
Very early. Thrawn's
right?
like he's a clone. Don't worry about it. Like in the third chapter.
That's right.
And we're like, oh, okay. And so it like casts this pall over this character for the rest of the book. But that would be the fun reveal. It'd be like he was a clone the whole time. And...
Well, that's what's fun.
Right.
It feels like
if we like,
storied backstory, having served in the Clone Wars, and like. The clone reveal only works if you feel like he's not a clone and he has this storied life. Like that's the only way it actually is interesting.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
So maybe he is a clone because
I still want my Outbound Flight reveal. Like
too.
I love that it's so vague about him serving in the Clone Wars and it being vague about like him being vague. It's because his memory's not quite there because he left on Outbound Flight halfway through the Clone Wars and like he just stumbles across his corpse.
Yeah,
like in one of these episodes and just the mind f that would do to him.
Right.
Like he just loses it.
What if there's hope for Druis Sabaoth in this show? Like the Outbound Flight still out there and
maybe
that'd be fun.
That'd be hilarious.
Yeah, because then you could cast old wizard. You know what I mean? I don't know. Like that's exciting. I think that was what was cool and jumped out at me with those books is sort of like the old sage, almost like a crazy good version of Palpatine, or not a good. Obviously, Jorah was like a villain character in the piece, but it's like he seemed like chaotic neutral in a lot of ways, but also very controlling. But it's just a cool character. It's kind of like a nice opposite to Palpatine.
Indeed. All right. Well, if we press stop right now, anything else y'all want to talk about? Because whenever I hit stop on the record, that's when Grant always drops like 10 more like amazing theories on me. You got anything else kicking around the skull there, Grant?
Thing. I think I dropped the Luke Skywalker. I just think that with that vision, there'd be some fun. It's a fun way to marry that to a Luke Skywalker moment if you towards the very end of this season.
Yeah, I mean that could be the way it wraps. Is sort of like, maybe she tells him about Jason or something like that, and they have a little conversation. I think
Jason meeting Luke Skywalker would be awesome.
Yeah,
right. He's like super fan. That would be so great.
Oh man. Now I'm like, what if the cut to black end of season is her walking into the camp and going, "We need to talk about your father." Cut to black.
Yeah. I mean, because Filoni's been hitting all the major beats that I've wanted to hit, and especially with the Anakin Force Ghost. That's definitely a Force Ghost and not like something else. He just the way that was done was like exactly what I like. But better than what I even hoped for as far as that interaction. And in what you're saying, Grant, it's like I didn't even know I wanted that. But you're right. Like now with, having more time with Anakin, her to have a real conversation with Luke and like how she looks at Luke now and what his journey is, that would be a really fun interaction.
The thing about Filoni is watching the show is just like the phrase that keeps coming to mind is light touch. He has a light touch on all this stuff in terms of just like not heavy handed, right? Like really like, which is like, I'm a little surprised by because like the cartoons are cartoons. The cartoons can't
he gave
have
us
light
full
touch.
Matt Lanter, like Anakin Skywalker. So that's not really a light touch.
No, but in terms of like, they could have had this very on the nose, heavy-handed speechifying,
Right.
which they didn't, right?
Yeah.
And then and Mandalorian, I love the Mandalorian. That is not a light touch show.
No. Yeah, you're right. It just kind of beats you over the head with it.
Yeah, it's fun. It's Galaxy. It's an adventure of the week. It's the Blind Swordsman. As you
Yeah,
like
yeah.
to say,
You
right?
get to
But
that
it's not-
point.
yeah,
I think I
it's-
like how everything's kind of drenched in that samurai genre in this show.
Yeah.
And it's not that boisterous classic kind of
Yeah.
Star Wars fanfare we usually get. It's sort of like very samurai, and I'm here for it. Like, I love it. I
Same.
just love the title card. I love the music. I listen to the end credit music all the way through.
Me too.
It crushes at the end. It hits some sort of Leia motif at the end, Leia thing. It's just, I don't know. I'm just in love with the show. I think I love listening to this show. I think the sound design, sound mixing of the show is on the level.
No, I think so too.
Especially the Vader stuff. I was blown away. Just him flickering in and out of Vader, and I don't know, all that stuff was so cool. The clone troopers running by. Rex.
Rex.
On this pod.
Rex.
And when he
Rex.
said the word
Yeah,
Rex.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great Rex cameo where he's just in the background, but you're like, that's Rex.
I mean, yeah, we all did, I hope.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, totally. I was young
Young
looking forward
Ahsoka.
the entire time.
Shout out to the actress who played
Yeah.
young Ahsoka. I thought that,
Perfect.
again,
Yeah.
this is the best Hayden performance as Anakin Skywalker I've ever seen. And I think that's due to some of his scene partners. I think Rosario absolutely crushes
Yes.
it. I think young Ahsoka absolutely crushes it.
Yeah.
Give Hayden
Actor
something
has
to work off
a
of. It's almost I don't know. The prequels are near and dear to my heart. I love them. They're great. There's so much they're basically world building, the trilogy. But it's Ewan McGregor's so good as Obi-Wan Kenobi and so good at emulating Alec Guinness that you're just kind of, I don't know, entranced by his performance. And then when Hayden kind of just says anything in the prequels, it feels a little bit melodramatic or a little bit over the top. And this was nice because I felt it just felt like he's really, I don't know, able to slow down and not be faster and more intense, and sort of Filoni's direction of Hayden, I think is really fun and interesting. And I think I would love to see more, honestly. Love to see Filoni direct Hayden to do more Anakin stuff. I don't know what that means. I don't know how to do that.
I don't know. But I hope so too.
Incredible direction. Incredible scene directing. Yeah.
It's his best performance as Anakin.
Yeah.
And Ben, you had mentioned that he gave us full Matt Lantern Anakin. And I'm part of me wonders if he just if I don't know how much Anakin or how much or Hayden Christensen watches any Star Wars stuff, but I wonder if he doesn't watch anything or disconnected. I wonder if Filoni was just here's some episodes of the Clone Wars I want you to watch. You know what I mean?
I think I've seen an interview with Hayden where he said he's watched all of the Clone Wars. He loves it.
Yeah, so I wonder if that's that's given him more of an idea of who Anakin is in some way, right? To have this.
How fun would that be? I mean, I know that's him.
Yeah.
Hayden Christensen will always be Anakin Skywalker. Will always just Jake Lloyd will always be Anakin Skywalker, right? And and that they'll always have their donations to that. And then it's a thing where it gets passed along because that's the way the world works. And then the films came out so tight that you had to do different things, but. Yeah, I think he loves it. They're all working together. They're all the same person, and they're all adding new parts as Anakin grows older.
Yeah.
He had a quote. I think it was. I don't know when it was from, but he basically said it's so nice to see the fandom finally come back around on me. And I guess the lesson to take away from this is patience. Right, so it's a very Jedi lesson, right? He could have taken, he could have been very spiteful about it, but he's patience is important.
Dude, that's a great bit. That's a really great meta bit. I mean, that was what Obi-Wan was telling him a million times,
right? It's hilarious.
Well,
yeah,
so
exactly.
Cute.
It was great. It was.
We'll always have
the other thing
and that's the important thing. It's just so great.
And so will he. Yeah, and which is awesome. The other thing I'll say is just because we mentioned the actor who played young Ahsoka also played young Gamora in Infinity War. So she's quite
interacted with arch villains before.
Yeah. She was perfect. Pitch perfect.
Good.
Yeah, and when it comes to the Anakin performance, just one last note, it's I really love that Hayden tries to match the cadence of James Earl Jones when he speaks. There's a price to pay. there's hope for you yet. Like, he says it's
Yes.
slower because he's
He
trying
does.
to match the cadence and rhythm of James Earl
Yes.
Jones. And I think Hayden is actively trying to do that. And I think animation moves a little too fast for Matt Lantern to do that. So
Yes.
I just
Right.
don't think there's the opportunity to do that. But I love that Hayden is actually trying to match that rhythm, because I'm a massive James Earl Jones fan. And so it's just,
Yep.
it's cool
Yep.
that he's trying to do that.
That's
with
a
his-
really good point.
That's a good observation. I didn't. But the second you're saying it, I'm like, oh, he totally was doing that. Yeah, it's
It
great.
sounds languid
Yeah.
and kind of strange, but it's for me, who's having that nitpick out here. You know, Ben's concerned about the ship interiors. I'm concerned about like rhythm of dialogue.
Yeah, right. Accurate. That's fair. It's a
Yeah.
fair assessment. No, man, you nailed it. That's so right. That's so right that he was doing
I just
that.
respect to Hayden. I think he did great doing that. But yeah,
Yeah.
young is so crushed, and like so
Yeah.
cool to see the Padawan braid. So cool to see the green saber.
Mhm.
Yeah, lightsaber corner.
I know Ben. When I saw young Ahsoka with the green saber, I was like, oh, Ben is pumped right now.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah. Same
Yeah,
thoughts,
they actually had like all the like evolutions of her. So that was like her
Yeah.
single saber. This was before she had the Shoto, which was like a like yellowish green. So they skipped her
Yeah.
having that, but then they went to she was wielding the custom sabers that Anakin made for her for the Siege of Mandalore, which were the blue
Right.
sabers, and then of course she
Right.
eventually got the white. But yeah, no, that was not lost on me. I was like, oh, what lightsaber is she using?
Yeah, the hill. Pretty
Yeah.
sweet hill. Yeah.
All of the incarnations, like you could have a great set of lightsabers if you just collected Ahsoka's lights.
Ahsoka
Yeah.
kitted out so many times.
Yeah, totally kitted out and great. Yeah, they're beautiful designs. I hope we get to see
constructed a new lightsaber.
Yeah, dude, great scene,
actually,
bro.
literally the
That's
green.
the scene, dude. And he's like, and it's like,
So I right after watching this episode, I watched Empire Strike Back, The Cave, Yoda on Luke's back,
nice.
telling him about fear and anger, and then I watched Return of the Jedi, and I watched Luke and Vader
Yeah,
on that command base on
Endor's
and that.
men, yeah.
Yeah. So I think we're like keep trying to dismount here, but like the fact that we just talked about the fact, we're talking lightsaber corner. I'm going to join you here in lightsaber corner for a
Nice.
second, Ben. And we talked about like I do think that Ahsoka is a Jedi now. I think she is a Jedi Knight. I think she is past her trials. So my question is, next time she ignites her lightsaber, is it going to be white?
Well, so here's the thing. Like you get a white lightsaber because you took red crystals and you reverted them back to the light side of the Force. That's the only way to get light.
Yes.
But to get a colored crystal, you'd need a new crystal.
Why?
Adam's got
because
more
once
kyber
they're
crystals than
white,
both
they're
of us,
white.
Ben. Let's be careful.
Why? Show me your work on
Because
that.
it's like it's like already spent. Like you milk all the color out of it when you turn it red, and then when you turn it back, then it's like totally there's no more.
But my question is, where did the color come from?
The crystal itself. So those crystals used to be
Okay.
some color,
Yeah.
green, blue, orange, yellow, whatever.
So I agree. I understand what you're saying. But if you could turn something red,
You can turn it blue.
blue or green, I'm just saying.
I like it.
I'm just saying we might get some new canon. We might get some new
Right.
canon suddenly because like that might be the moment, right? Like because we get like Luke igniting his green lightsaber in Return of the Jedi is an amazing moment. We get Darth Maul with the double lightsaber reveal. We get a lot of lightsaber stuff, and to have her suddenly ignite it and it just to be like beautiful green,
Yeah.
right?
Like back
imagine
to
how
her like origins, like
Yeah,
green and
like,
yellow.
I-
That would
like-
be great. And
like, that would be
this
amazing.
is something
Yeah.
Grant's been talking about a lot when we've been passing each other in the hallways and stuff like that. It's just like he wants to keep pushing the dynamic, like bring something new in. And that's why he liked the world between
that's
worlds.
kind of where
and,
I'm
like,
at. Yeah.
it's like bring a new like wrinkle into the nature of the Force and being a Jedi and all that stuff. And that would
I think
fit.
George would make
if
George
you can-
proud. George
Yeah.
always wants new worlds.
So
New
here's the thing. Yeah, exactly.
extrapolations of the Force.
Yes,
George
yes.
wants to push the envelope, design,
Yeah.
mysticism,
Right.
mythological structure.
Yeah.
Everything.
if you can bleed and you can cleanse, why can't you imbue?
Right. Like Force, like good, Force energy into your crystals.
You're putting all of your Force energy into it, and that's the color that you get, which is always kind of what I assumed it would have been before,
Right.
they canonized it that you find green or these colors, that you're imbuing it based on your personality and
Right. your
Your
mission.
alien force.
Why would it turn any other color than white? I feel like she is Ahsoka the White at this point. Like,
See,
Yeah, I mean,
we've
no,
now
that could be.
entered the Ahsoka the White territory. So.
right.
Yeah, I mean, it would still be kind of. I wouldn't hate it if she lights it up and it's white. It's
It's
gonna
very
look amazing.
poetic
but
too,
it's
because she
like-
even has like the white head tails, and
Yeah.
when she beats
Yeah.
Anakin, it's like
Her fit is tight now. Her fit is
really
clean now.
luminous
I really like her
it's
new
true.
fit.
yeah.
But Grant Wise, what I think you stepped away for a second is what I told Ben is like we love our lightsaber reveals in Star Wars.
Yeah.
we
Like
do.
lightsaber color reveals, it's
Yeah.
huge in Star Wars.
And if you can take, you know,
Yeah.
if you can suck the color out and make it red, and then suck the color out and make it white, like why can't you just like now take it a step further and give it a color again?
Well, I don't know. But if we're still
Just
in
white
theory
is
corner,
awesome.
I think we might get one of the Dark Jedi characters redeemed, and then you might see that crystal return to it. Or yeah, what's interesting, I'm fascinated by Balin and Shin Hati, just given that like their sabers are orange and look like tinged with white. Like they're like I don't, it looks like they could turn another color, or like they're not fully dark. Like these people are not fully dark to me. It's much
they're
it's
not.
much of like a Luke and Vader situation where it's like, you know, there's still good in you, like to these two. You know, and I'm just wondering what happens with that part of the story.
It would be really cool if, like, you know, Ahsoka does turn them back to the light, like redeems their characters, and then they do cleanse their, you know, I mean, I don't know if you're orange, it's not really red, but like I don't know if it needs to be cleansed.
Didn't
but,
Plo Koon have orange or something?
No, he was green.
Oh,
Blue.
okay.
Blue.
Okay.
Yeah. But no, this is the first.
No one's been orange?
No, I mean, I think it's just been a fabrication of video games. But it makes sense that Dark Jedi would be orange. You know.
To me, they're like furnace, like smelter, like fire orange. Though they're not like
It's pretty
just
close.
orange. It feels like it's
dark.
I don't know what it is,
Yeah.
like an industrious feel to it. I don't know what it is. It's strange.
They look great, but it's really tough to tell. Like I was really looking in episode 4 between Murak's definitely has a red saber, right? Versus
Maruka's red saber.
Sure. Like they're orange, and I'm like, yeah, there's a difference there. It's super subtle, but yeah, I mean, they could turn white. It's like, and maybe like Balin Skull perishes, you know, saving, you know, fighting for the cause and being a Jedi again. I'd love to see more Shin Hati, you know, doing things on the light side as well. Like she seems like a really fascinating character.
It seems like
forward.
Sabine might learn this lesson not to kill Shinati or something.
Yeah.
When she does get the upper hand.
I think that might be.
Yeah.
That was kind of my takeaway. I think I texted you guys. I was like, I think this might be something that Ahsoka passes on to Sabine, because if you watch that episode 4, Sabine is just like revving to get in that fight.
If anyone needs that lesson,
it's Sabine right now. Yeah. And which is weird because like Ahsoka was so like obsessed with not falling to the dark side, but she was really kind of casual with Sabine. I don't know if it's like that's because she just doesn't trust her.
Another crazy thing
powers.
with Sabine though,
right,
is I think Sabine is like powerful in the dark side. I think she can use the Force when she uses the dark side. As just the theory I have.
That'd be interesting.
Okay, that'd be fun, interesting.
I like it. Yeah.
But not light side. That'd be wild.
Yeah, almost like it's a dark side thing or something. I'm trying to think of what made me think that. I guess when she's fighting Kanan in Rebels, she's kind of goes like full aggro.
Yeah,
when
absolutely.
her family's brought up and like she's super powerful. I'm like, she's almost like when her emotions get stirred, she is incredibly strong in the fight. So I'm excited to see that happen again.
And definitely when they have the blind sword fight, she actually gets a couple hits in against Ahsoka.
Yep.
You know, but it was because she was like getting angry. And
right, and then Ahsoka knocked her off balance.
Yeah.
She was finally doing a little better, but it was So, yeah.
All right. I think we did it for this week, guys. There's I'm sure we could bleed more out of the stone if we really tried hard, but or not even tried hard, just kept talking. But
yeah, exactly.
I think that's a full episode.
If someone didn't call it, we could go for another, I don't know, 17, 18 hours.
So if you're listening to this, we appreciate you waiting 6 days after the episode launch to catch up on us on what we had to say. We greatly appreciate all y'all. Next week we got another banger. Episode 6 should be amazing. Can't wait for that. Man. I'm looking forward to talking to you then. on another edition of
Cantina Chronicles.